On televisions, newspapers, radios, and smartphones, local news is far more accessible than ever. The digital age is vastly changing, and so are the ways in which journalists gather and share public information. So what will the future be for local news as technology advances?
Charlotte has a very vibrant media market with virtually every platform you can imagine in existence here, and more so than I think from most cities of its size. It has very active television stations, a dominant newspaper, several online sites, radio, and I'm trying to think of what else there might be, but there's several other minority-owned newspapers as well. So there's a lot that goes on with media in Charlotte.
These different mediums are what continue to bond communities to journalism, specifically at the local level.
Local news matters because it speaks to where you live, it speaks to what you have in common with people around you. And so if you are to understand and really appreciate a community and support a community and be a constructive force in your community, you have to be literally reading from the same page. And I don't mean paper, but I mean you've got to be looking at some of the same content to understand that you have this mutual understanding of what's happening around you.
Every reporter just about went out with a photographer. We didn't do our own photography. We would take notes with a pen and paper and go back to our office, and maybe if we had a recording, we would transcribe the notes and type everything up, and then sit down at a typewriter or a word processor in those days and type your story. It was very different than today, when reporters are expected to be reporters, but also photographers and videographers and video editors, and now reporters are much more versatile than they were when I got started. Up to now, information has largely flown from the reporters to readers. Well, when you get out among those people, information flows. It becomes more of a two-way conversation.
People in Charlotte, in the Charlotte area, we know they consume the news that we're reporting, so it's a good give and take market. We break news on Twitter, on our websites first before it makes it on air. Back in the day, it was you wait till 5, 6, 11 o'clock at night. Not now. There's no waiting.
People in Charlotte, and particularly millennials at this point, just want the news now, and they don't want to wait until tomorrow morning. What they're reading tomorrow morning might already be yesterday's news. Some people prefer to read in a newspaper or magazine format. Some people prefer to read online. Some people want it in a newsletter. Some people want it on social media. So I think really having that breadth of options is super important. I think the future will kind of depend on the trends that we see and who's consuming in which way. I would have to imagine that at this point that's social media. But I think there's room for all of us to play. I think it's a question of for how long.
We can adopt new technology, but if our readers don't trust us, if we're not accurate, if we're not thorough, if we forget about the principles of journalism, then I think we've lost something that's really important.